Prologue, Germany, April 1945. By the spring of 1945, the Third Reich was bleeding to death. Berlin was surrounded. The Red Army was pushing west like a steel tide. American and British forces were closing in from the other side. Yet in the forests and farmlands southeast of Berlin, nearly 200,000 German soldiers were still fighting, not for victory, but for escape. They belonged to Army Group Vistula and parts of the Ninth Army, Hitler's last organized force outside Berlin. Most were young boys, old men, and exhausted veterans who knew the war was lost. Their only hope was to break west and surrender to the Americans. But between them and freedom stood the Red Army. What followed would become one of the bloodiest and least known battles of World War II. The Halbe Pocket. And in just 7 days, Hitler's final army would be wiped from the map. Day 1. The trap closes. April 23, 1945. General Theodor Bussy, commander of the German Ninth Army, received a desperate message. Berlin was encircled. Hitler was demanding that Bussy attack toward the capital. But Bussy knew the truth. Berlin was already dead. Instead, he made a forbidden decision. He would turn his army west. If he could reach the town of Halbe, he might break through Soviet lines and link up with General Wenck's 12th Army. From there, they could flee toward the American front. For tens of thousands of soldiers, and civilians fleeing with them, it was the last chance to live. But the Soviets had already anticipated this move. Marshal Ivan Konev's forces began tightening their grip. Tank columns rolled north. Infantry closed from the south. The trap was forming. Day 2. The Column of Desperation. By April 24th, the German breakout began. The roads toward Halbe filled with a horrifying procession. Soldiers on foot, wounded men on carts, civilians dragging children through mud, and horse-drawn wagons piled with what little they owned. Above them, Soviet aircraft circled like vultures. The moment the column was spotted, the sky erupted. Bombs fell. Machine guns raked the roads. Panic spread like fire. German anti-aircraft guns fired wildly, but it was useless. By nightfall, thousands lay dead on the highways. But the column kept moving, because behind them was the Red Army. And behind that was Berlin's inferno. Day 3. The Forest of Death. April 25th. The survivors reached the forests near Halbe and walked straight into hell. Soviet tanks and infantry were already waiting. The trees exploded as shells ripped through trunks. Branches rained down like shrapnel. Men vanished in clouds of dirt and blood. German units tried to form battle lines, but chaos ruled. Officers screamed orders no one could hear. Radio communications collapsed. Entire battalions were swallowed in minutes. The forest became a killing ground. Soviet Katyusha rockets howled overhead, slamming into the packed German columns. There was nowhere to run. Men trampled the wounded to escape. Civilians were caught in the firestorm. Children disappeared in the smoke. By nightfall, the Halbe Pocket was fully sealed. Hitler's last army was trapped. Day 4. The breakout attempts. April 26th. Bussy knew time was running out. He ordered everything he had, tanks, assault guns, even supply trucks, to smash west through the Soviet lines. The Germans attacked again and again. They charged through artillery fire. They stormed Soviet positions with bayonets. They fought in hand-to-hand combat among burning trees. For brief moments, small groups broke through. But most were cut down. Soviet forces poured reinforcements into the pocket, tightening the noose. By evening, ammunition was nearly gone. So was food. So was hope. Day 5. Starvation and collapse. April 27th. The Halbe Pocket had become a slaughterhouse. Wounded men lay everywhere, begging for water that didn't exist. Medics worked until they collapsed. Civilians huddled in shell holes, waiting for death. German commanders realized the truth. There would be no rescue, no link-up, no escape. Some units tried one final charge. Most never made it 50 meters. Soviet machine guns turned open fields into graveyards. By nightfall, entire divisions had ceased to exist. Day 6. The Final Massacre. April 28th. The Soviets began wiping out the pocket piece by piece. Tanks rolled forward, crushing wrecked vehicles and bodies alike. Flamethrowers burned through forest shelters. Artillery pounded anything that moved. Thousands of Germans surrendered. Thousands more were killed. Some officers committed suicide rather than be captured. The roads to Halbe were now covered with corpses. The German Ninth Army was finished. Day 7. Silence. April 29th. The guns fell silent. What remained of Hitler's last army surrendered. Out of nearly 200,000 who had entered the Halbe Pocket, over 60,000 were dead. Tens of thousands more were wounded or captured. The road west was never reached. Berlin would fall 2 days later. Hitler would kill himself in his bunker. And the Third Reich would die, with its last army buried in the forests of Halbe. Epilogue. A battle forgotten. Today, the Halbe forest looks peaceful. Birds sing. Trees grow tall. But beneath the soil lie tens of thousands who never escaped the final trap of 1945. They weren't fighting for Hitler anymore. They were fighting to survive. And in just 7 days, that hope was destroyed forever.